Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, right now, as you're sitting there watching this, you're doing something that is just incredibly profound. You are aware. You can think, you can question things, you feel emotions, and you know, absolutely know that you're alive. It's literally the most immediate, everyday experience you have. But when you really stop and think about it, it is utterly remarkable. You know you exist. I really want to ground this whole abstract concept right here, right now, in your present moment. Just think about it. Out of all the swirling matter in this vast, expanding universe, you are experiencing the deeply strange, incredible fact of self-awareness. We totally take it for granted, right? Mostly because we just experience it every single second of the day. But honestly, it's the most extraordinary thing happening in the cosmos right now. But why? And that right there brings us to the central mystery of this whole explainer. Why does consciousness even exist at all? How is it that the universe can suddenly observe itself through the human mind? The sources we're diving into today ask us to consider a really fascinating premise. What if this self-awareness isn't just some random accident of biological evolution? What if, actually, it's an intentional creation? To wrap our heads around why this is such a massive question, we gotta look at what scientists and philosophers call the hard problem. Basically, it's the unexplained gap between physical matter, like the actual gray matter of your brain, and subjective experience, which is your identity, the you inside there. Look, science is absolutely brilliant at measuring electrical activity in your neural pathways. We've got chemistry, biology, and physics pretty well mapped out. But where science completely hits a wall is explaining how a literal clump of physical matter suddenly wakes up and becomes a self-aware person. Like, how exactly does a physical brain create an invisible identity? Modern science still hasn't solved this. And that brings us to ancient wisdom's answer. It's a totally different perspective. See, where modern science looks at this and finds an unsolvable mechanical mystery, ancient spiritual traditions looked at human consciousness and saw something deeply sacred. They didn't view it as some biological accident. No, they saw it as a highly intentional gift. To them, human awareness was literally a direct connection to a divine reality. And what's wild is that across completely different civilizations, we see this exact same idea popping up. Ancient Egyptians, for example, linked consciousness to Ma'at, which was this cosmic order of truth and justice. And they believed awareness was given to us specifically to uphold that divine balance. Meanwhile, Hebrew traditions taught that humanity was literally breathed into existence with the Ruach, or the breath of life, making us uniquely created in the image of God, with true reason and spiritual purpose. Greek philosophers, they believed awareness was the specific tool that connects humans to higher universal truths. Even the ancient Book of Enoch describes these profound spiritual dimensions that are fundamentally tied to our human existence. So, across cultures, across continents, the sources showed this powerful shared belief. Human awareness exists for a profound, divine reason. So this ancient perspective naturally leads us to our first major theme, survival versus divine truth. Let's look at the stark contrast here between humanity and the rest of the biological world. A lion doesn't sit around having an existential crisis after a successful hunt, right? It just obeys its instincts, it survives, and it reproduces. But humans, we are constantly questioning our own existence. We actively seek God, we try to imagine eternity, and we are always searching for deeper meaning. An animal just survives. A human wonders what happens after we die. These ancient texts are suggesting that awareness was designed specifically to make that kind of spiritual seeking possible in the first place. The texts present this incredibly fascinating premise. Perhaps consciousness exists so humanity can seek deeper reality itself. I mean, really think about that for a second. Without self-awareness, humanity could never pursue a purpose beyond just getting through the day and finding our next meal. We could never recognize moral responsibility, and we could absolutely never search for an understanding of a creator. Awareness is the ultimate prerequisite for seeking truth. You literally can't seek it if you don't know you exist. Moving on to our next key area, awareness, choice, and morality. Okay. So moving beyond just seeking truth, let's walk through this sequential logic of freedom. Step 1 is consciousness, Step 2 is free will, and Step 3 is moral responsibility. The sources make a really compelling point here. A universe filled entirely with unconscious beings can only ever obey blind instinct. In that world, there's no right or wrong, there's just raw survival. But awareness, Step 1, unlocks the ability to actually decide. That's free will, Step 2.
And having that free choice is the absolute non-negotiable requirement for step 3, moral responsibility. Actually, it's also the fundamental requirement for genuine love. The ancient perspective essentially argues that God created consciousness because things like true love and morality require freedom, and you simply cannot have freedom without being self-aware.
Next up, let's look at bridging the spiritual reality. Now, these ancient traditions completely believed the physical brain didn't actually produce consciousness. Instead, they thought the brain just temporarily contained it, sort of acting as a bridge. So, everyday physical experiences were seen as literal gateways. Take sleep, for example. We spend roughly a third of our entire lives asleep, which is huge. But the ancients viewed this not just as bodily downtime, but as an active bridge to the spiritual through dreams and visions. What we call instinct, they saw as a deeper spiritual intuition. Even our physical mortality opens the door to things like near-death experiences, and just normal everyday life is constantly punctuated by these mystical encounters. The source material is really clear on this. Consciousness was seen as the very bridge connecting our physical, mortal bodies directly to the divine.
The universe becoming conscious of itself. Let's just take a quick second to zoom out here. I want you to consider the sheer scale of the vast physical universe. We're talking billions of galaxies, endless stars, planets, all seemingly governed by these cold, rigid physical laws. And yet, somehow, inside that immense silent space, life emerged. And eventually, beings appeared who were actually capable of observing existence itself. Like you are literally the universe looking back at itself. The ancient text suggests this was absolutely never an accident. It suggests that reality itself was designed on purpose for something far, far greater than mere survival.
So at the end of the day, we're left with this lingering, monumental question. Why do you believe God created consciousness? Or is it simply the greatest mystery humanity has never solved? The text we've explored throughout this explainer strongly suggests that self-awareness is the specific key that allows us to seek truth, to make free moral choices, and to actually connect with a reality that goes way beyond the physical. Perhaps the deepest, most profound truths about our existence aren't just floating out there in the distant stars, but already exist right inside your own awareness.